Hello everyone and welcome to another video in this channel. Today we're going to be talking about a really interesting thing, which is the difference between a specular glossiness and metallic roughness. What are those things, why are they necessary, and what are the type of results that we're going to be able to get with them? Well, today we're inside of Marmoset Toolpack 4, which is a real-time rendering that's going to allow me to show you this specific technicalities of how the shaders work. But before we do that, we need to understand what the hell is a shader, right? Well, a shader is a mathematical model that we use inside of render engines such as Arnold, Unreal Engine, Unity, etc., to calculate and display the way the material would behave on a specific environment. Now, throughout the years, computer scientists and programmers have been perfectioning these things, and they've created two models that are usually used inside of the 3D industry. One of them is specular glossiness, and the other one is metallic roughness. So let's start with metallic roughness, okay? Which is the default in this case in Marmoset. So if I go over here and I create a new material, I'm gonna call this new material. I'm just gonna call this metallic roughness. We are gonna see that once we select this material right here, we have a lot of properties on the lower portion right here that we can select. Usually, we're gonna have 4 properties that pretty much every material that you're gonna be using will have. That is color, normal map information, roughness, and metallic. That is, of course, for the roughness metallic workflow. In the case of color, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's the color of the object, okay? So if we select this red color and assign it to the armor, you can see the whole armor changes red, and no matter how we modify or move the lights around, we'll get this very nice red color happening pretty much everywhere. We don't have a normal map right now. Actually, this is the high poly, so we got millions of polygons right now, showing this armor, which is from our latest course, by the way. Should be available right now, but if it's not, just wait a couple of days and it's going to be on all of our usual platforms. And this one right here, or actually the next value that we need to change is, I would say, the roughness. The roughness is really important. We know that when light bounces on an object, depending on how that light bounces, we're going to see a really clean reflection or a really dirty reflection. So something that's very rough, it doesn't matter how much light is shining to that or towards that object. If the object is very rough, we're never going to see a reflection. But if the object is very smooth on its surface, if it doesn't have as much roughness, then the reflection that we're going to get is a lot cleaner, like a mirror. So if we go over here to the microsurface section, you're going to see that we have the roughness slider. Right now it's set to 0.3, which is a standard for plastics and stuff. If we start bringing this down, you can see now we have a really clean, super shiny reflection. We're even seeing the reflection of the lights of the environment right here. I'm gonna go to the sky. Right now we're in the sort of studio, and let's download something a little bit different. Let's go with this alleyway. So I'm just gonna double click to get my own. By the way, we also have a course about Marmoset Toolpack 4. It's a great course about rendering your stuff. So there you go. So now we have this thing, and as I move the light around, you can see how we can see the reflection of the objects, like the trees, the skyscrapers, and everything on the armor. And this is because the roughness of the armor is really low, pretty much at 0. The more we increase the roughness, the more matte the object becomes, all the way to perfectly matte, where light is pretty much or reflections are pretty much gone. We're just seeing basic shadows and basic light, but there's absolutely no reflection on the object. You're usually not going to get all the way to this area. You're not going to have an object that has a super high roughness. Usually when I'm doing... Oh my god, sorry about that. When I'm doing things like skin or something where I don't want the skin to be or I want some things to be dry, I usually keep it 0.5, 0.7, maybe 0.8 is as high as I would go for something like dirt or something. So that's the main thing that we're going to be driving here with the roughness channel. However, you can see that even though we have the roughness set all the way down to 0, this still does not look like a chrome armor or something like metal armor. That's because this particular model that we're using, the metallic roughness model, changes depending on whether we tell this thing that it's a metal or a non-metal. And this will work with this reflectivity tab right here, the metalness, and it should be a switch. There are no objects on the world, on the physical world, there are absolutely no objects, at least to my knowledge, that have the properties of half metal, half non-metal. An object is either metallic or non-metallic, 0 or 1. From an artistic standpoint, we can actually tell it, hey, we want something that's half metal, as you can see right here, and half plastic. But this is not physically accurate. Usually, it's either metallic or non-metallic. So if I push this all the way to metallic, you're gonna see now that this whole thing starts to look and it starts to shade like a metallic object, giving us a really cool look. And of course, if we push the roughness up, we're gonna be able to see a little bit more of a nice metal. If we want a lighter metal, we need to push the color up in this case to get a slightly different result, such as this one. Okay, so by combining these three maps, the albedo, the roughness, and the metallic, we're able to calibrate or create these sort of like interactions that we want for our shader to display the way we want it. Now, let's jump onto the other type of shader. I'm gonna bring this back. Actually, let's duplicate this thing, and then let's move it to the side. There we go. So that's the metallic roughness. One of the things that I like about Marmoset is that it works in a very fast way. So even though we're working with millions of polygons right now, you can see we have 5.3 million triangles on this one. So it's like 10 million, 14 million. It's like what, like 11 million polygons right now on the screen, and you can see it's like not even batting an eye. So on this one, let's assign the basic material first. Let's create a new material, and this one's going to be called Specular Glossiness. So the Specular Glossiness shader has actually been on like the industry for a long time. Actually, the newest like shading model, the metallic roughness, came about, I would say, like 10 years ago, roughly, if my memory is not wrong. But when I first started learning 3D, there was no metallic roughness. Everything was managed with the specular glossiness. And the way we change it here inside of Marmoset is by going to the microsurface and changing this to glossiness, and then going into the reflectivity and changing this to specular. So now we're out of the specular glossiness channel, or the specular glossiness shading model, and we're into the, we're out of the metallic roughness and we're into the specular glossiness. I'm going to select the same sort of like red color that we have right here. Let's assign this one. There we go. And the glossiness is actually, very interestingly, it's the opposite of the roughness. So it's inversely proportionate. If you push the roughness up, the glossiness goes down. If you push the glossiness up, the roughness goes down. So if at any point you're texturing something with the metallic roughness like pipeline, and then they tell you, hey, we need to change things around, we're going to be using specular glossiness, don't panic. The glossiness map and the roughness map, they're perfectly compatible. We just need to invert them, okay? So if I bring the glossiness down, you're going to see that my object becomes very flat, very matte. And if we bring the glossiness up, you're going to see that we get the shiny effect that we get when the roughness is down. So they're inversely proportional. And most of the softwares nowadays actually have like a little node or something that you can use to flip. You can see it right here. We can invert this one right here. And we can tell, hey, we want glossiness to behave like roughness. When the glossiness is low, the shininess is going to be higher. But that's up to you to decide which one you want to use. So glossiness will tell us the quality of the surface, like how is light being reflected from that surface? Is it a really clean reflection, or is it a really dirty reflection? And then reflectivity, here's where things change a little bit, because reflectivity tells us that every single object in the world has something called a specular value, which is how much light bounces back from that object into our eyes. If we bring the specularity down, the object becomes flat, as you can see right here, okay? Very flat, because not a lot of light is going. Actually, if we get this all the way to the bottom, you can see that even with glossiness all the way to the top, it looks kind of flat, right? The more we start increasing the intensity of our specular map, the more metallic we're gonna make the whole thing look. And as you can see, look at the numbers right here. We're almost halfway in the intensity slider, and the number is only at 0.273, because there is a really interesting like graph. Like if we take a graph of like specularity, and we start with 0 and we finish at 100% specularity, most objects, I would say like 90% of the objects that you like know about, plastic, wood, asphalt, I don't know, like concrete, all those stuff, they're gonna be between 0 and 30%. Some people like to go all the way to 40%, but in my personal experience, 30% is usually the cutoff point. And then there's nothing in this area of specularity until we get all the way to like 90%. And from 90% to 100%, we get the metals, okay? So instead of having a switch of 0 to 1, which tells us, is it metal, is it non-metal, it's a different way to calculate things, a more like scientifically accurate way, to be honest, that tells us, hey, if you're in between 0 and 0.3%, you're gonna have the shiny stuff, but then this area, like 0.6, 0.7, that's like not physically accurate. And then when we get all the way to the top, we get here, to the metals, to the chrome effects. So if we go, for instance, to the metallic glossiness and bring the roughness down, you can see that both of them are behaving like perfectly chrome materials. But there's a difference. This one, we have a red color on the albedo map, and now there's nothing here. Why? Because the specular map does not separate the color of the reflection from the reflection itself. So if you want this thing to be a red armor, you need to change the intensity to 0 or to 1 in this case, and then saturate it with color like this. And now we're gonna get the red armor. This is going to give you a more accurate representation of how we will do, but it requires a little bit more technical knowledge. That's why a lot of games nowadays have switched from specular roughness or specular glossiness to metallic roughness, because with metallic roughness, it's very easy to know, hey, this is metal, this is not, this is how much rough or not I want it. And with specular glossiness, you need to account for other little things here and there to make sure that you get a nice result as what we're seeing right here. So for instance, a very simple one, gold. If you want to do gold on the metallic roughness thing, you just go for like a nice golden color. You grab the color of the gold that you want, and you play a little bit with the roughness, and you're like, yeah, there we go. That's my gold. Usually gold's a little bit paler. So I'm going to desaturate it. Let's say something like that. There we go. So we get a gold armor. For a specular glossiness process, you would need to go to the color itself and change the color of the reflection. Now you can see that by changing the color of the reflection, now we are getting some red highlight somewhere because we are letting the diffuse affect our colors in specific ways. So I'm gonna have to go to this part right here, and usually what we do is either bring the color all the way back to 0 or to 1, depending on which one we want. But it's usually 0, like you usually don't need or you don't use color information on the specular roughness thing when working with metals. Now this one's a little bit green. Let's go more towards the yellows. And we should be able to find pretty much the same tone as what we have on the other one. So that's one of the main differences about specular glossiness, the way that they will interact. Now, as you can see, there's another thing here on the reflectivity, which is Fresnel. Fresnel is this little like halo that we get. I'm going to change this to a more interesting color, like purple, just so that you guys can see it. But this is like the little border that you get on the faces that are facing to or are away from the camera. So if you imagine you're seeing a sphere like straight through, the borders of the sphere, they're gonna get like this like glancing angles, and there will be shaded slightly differently. So the Fresnel right here helps with that. Now we can actually break this. If I go Fresnel, say, hey, give me 10 Fresnel, you're gonna see that we add way more Fresnel to the object, and we generate this sort of like iridescent thing where we start seeing other tones depending on the angle of view that we're doing that. We cannot do that on the metalness, because the metalness, it's a simpler version, but a more practical version for certain things. So imagine we're doing just a traditional, I don't know, like a radio, like a gun, like an armor for a medieval character. You're not going to be messing around with Fresnel angles and anything. You're just going to texture things inside of Substance Painter, and you're going to be using metallic roughness. But let's say you're doing some sci-fi stuff and you're going to be doing some like a little bit more intricate elements and changes on the materials. You're definitely going to need to jump and play around with the specular glossiness. Now you can also break the layers here on the intensity. So if you want something that's like ultra metallic, you can go to the intensity and say, hey, give me an intensity of 10. And look at this, it's gonna shine like really strongly because we're changing the specularity value of the elements. I use this trick a lot when doing renders with glass and things like that. When you want the reflections to be really strong, really like dazzling, you can change this. Again, breaks the physical limits of how the world works, but from an artistic perspective, it allows us to create things that look really interesting, like this one right here. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. As you can see, the metallic glossiness and the specular, the metallic roughness and the specular glossiness are very like they're two sides of the same coin. We use the same, or we use these shader models to create or represent the materials that we want to have in our renders in the best possible ways. One of them is going to be a little bit more technical. It's going to be more precise. It's going to allow us for very like physically accurate representations of the material that we want to create. The other one's a little bit more practical. If you're going to be working on games, you're most of the time going to be working with metallic roughness. If you're going to be working on film, you're probably going to be working with specular glossiness a little bit more because you get more layers of options there. So that's it. I know this was a very theory heavy video, not a lot of like tricks and stuff, but this is very important for you guys to know, because there will be a time when you get a request from a client or a studio and they want you to export or to work in one of these specific setups, and you need to understand what the main difference is. So hopefully with this, you guys are more aware of how to create and manipulate this materials here inside of Marmoset. If you want to check this course or any of our courses, I'm going to leave you with our promotion for Skillshare. So that's it, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey guys, Abraham here.
I just wanted to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below. And that's it, guys. If you want to support the channel, make sure to check the subscribe button right here. Make sure to hit the little bell icon. Give us a like. Let us know in the comments, where are you watching from? Because I'm completing my student map over here. So yeah, that's it, guys. I'll see you back tomorrow. Bye-bye.